Loyalty, fear, and obligation are completely keeping you from your next level. Welcome back to the Balanced Bully Podcast. I am Naketa Ren Thigpen, and I'm excited to be with all of you ambitious women in business and our few brave men who are tuning in again. As I'm thinking about this episode, which is the fourth in a 5-part series on the alignment exit, just really helping you see the benefits and the cost of having relationships that work for you, as well as the relationships that are no longer serving you. As I think about this, I can't help but to think about many of the recent writings that I've just kind of been jotting down publicly on Naketa Ren Thigpen at Substack. It's been fun, it's been interesting, and I've had an opportunity to really just share not only from my personal experience with some of these beautifully brutal relationships over a very long time of life, as well as my client experiences with, of course, keeping things anonymous and being mindful of all the things that we talk about in confidentiality. So there's some twists and some turns there that we talk about, that I talk about in my writing for Naketa Ren Thigpen on Substack, as well as some of the tools and strategies that we are kind of layering through Thig Pro Quo, which is our newest newsletter that you will have access to if you stay through to the balance of this series, which is just one more episode after this, and follow us in all the places that make sense, right? So today, I really want to jump into the why of those misaligned relationships. And as I started at the top of this episode with loyalty, fear, and obligations, I want to dive into that a little bit. Often we will hold on to people past their prime. Much of it is because of our own attachment styles as children. I am not blaming your parents or your guardians for anything that they try to do from the best, hopefully, the best of their ability as humans who were living life as a parent to you for the first time in their life, right? You are being born to someone who has never raised you before. It doesn't matter how many children came before you or how many children came after you. You are a unique personality. And I'm sure if you're listening to this and you're like me, I'm the oldest of 5, there's so many similarities and so many more differences between me and my siblings, right? We are very, very different humans. But I think if you lined us up against a wall, you could probably see the through line just looking at us. But if you listen to us in deeper conversations, if you hear us talk about things that we're passionate about, there'll be some overlap, but you'll also see the highlighted differences. And in that, a lot of our personal and professional relationships are very similar. What attracts us to people and kind of starts the building of loyalty are the things that we are just naturally attracted to. Like, I'm actually naturally attracted to differences more so than I am the sameness of a person. If someone is very similar to me, although I recognize it, I acknowledge it, it's like, oh, interesting. That's not the thing that's like, yes, we need to get together and have tea, right? Like that's not my thing, because I'm already me. I'm not necessarily looking for a clone of myself or hoping for, because you're not always looking, but sometimes you just attract what you attract. I'm not always hoping for a clone of me. I'm a very special spice. There's a lot of things that are amazing about me, and there's a lot of things that I wouldn't want to have 2 of, right? So just being mindful, we all said like, oh, I could get so much more done if there were 2 of me. Could you? Would you? Like, yes, maybe you're very efficient and you love systems and you do all those things well, but you also have to deal with the other version of that, the same attitude, the same sensitivities, the same inability to move the needle when you feel stiff-necked about something and you're being very stubborn about it, to say the least. So just being really mindful, like, do you really want 2 of you? And for the twins and triplets and quadruplets and quintuplets and all of you who actually do have clones of yourself, I know that you relate to this because you're constantly looking at the other version of you and seeing the things that you're hoping to see the things that are different because all the sameness is just too much, right? But in that, when we're, in the early building stages of relationship and the loyalty is kind of coming in, it is really steeped in what you're attracted to. Again, whether you're attracted to the differences that's my jam, or maybe you are attracted to the sameness because you're constantly around people who just don't get you, who don't understand. There's not enough of the sameness that you have recognized in them, that you see in them, that you've heard from them, that they've shown you. And you really are kind of missing that in your tribe, or wanting to create a tribe in the first place, right? Whatever it is that is the seed that gets watered for you as you're creating loyalty, that's also the very thing that can make you stay in relationships longer than you need to, because you start to justify it. Oh, I don't know anyone else who's like a Naketa. She's just so different, and I value so much of the differences. And that's great. Hopefully, Naketa has added value to you, has gifted you something in your life that you've learned from, grown from, done all the beautiful things from. But if Naketa's differences are starting to become stale and starting to impact you in a way that doesn't feel energizing anymore, motivating anymore, supportive anymore, is just the fact that Naketa is different enough to keep her in your life. Now, clearly, I'm talking about this other version of Naketa, because we all know everyone wants to keep this Naketa in their life forever, right? But seriously, you have to really look at where your loyalty is holding you stifled in those relationships, because this is part of why the misalignment is costing you so much in terms of going forward and growing into your next level. We're so loyal to a fault that we're holding ourselves back because we're justifying people's behaviors, right? We all have that family member or that person in our ecosystem, maybe not directly blood related, but that's in our ecosystem. You're like, oh, that's just how Sarah is. That's Lisa's just like that. That's just who she is. And we keep giving them a pass because it's always been, that's just what they do. That's just who they are. When it really should be turned to, oh, this is what we allow, right? Because people are only going to show their behinds and act a fool to the degree that they feel safe enough to do it. Even if the safe is wild, even if they're wiling out in different ways and being aggressive or frustrating or passive in such a toxic way that it's overwhelming and they're condescending and all that, they typically will do that repeatedly. I'm not talking about the first time they tested it, because people are going to test what they can test and see what they can get away with. But they're constantly doing it because they're constantly allowed to do it until one day, someday, hopefully, someone says, enough. Enough. So that other part where I said loyalty and fear, the fear that has been ruminating in you for longer than I can think about, that you can think about, the fear that has been keeping you from being honest in your communication with them, from telling them that this is not okay, that has to be checked, and you have to acknowledge it. You also have to look at the other element, because we said loyalty, fear, and, in parentheses, obligation. Many times we feel obligated to be the friend or the family member or the lover, whatever your title is in the context of this relationship. We feel obligated to be the one that can ride out with them, that won't be like everyone else in their life who gets fed up, washes their hands, and moves on. We feel obligated to continue with them. Maybe we feel obligated because we also have like a tied responsibility. Maybe they are a family member that we're caregiving of who happens to not be supportive and helpful and all the things. Maybe they are a child. And I don't mean like a minor, like a 5, 7, 10, 15, 17-year-old, whatever, but maybe you are a 60 plus year old human who has a 30 plus year old human or 40 plus year old human who you realize, as much as you've given in your imperfection and all the things, they are not the person that you want in your sanctuary. They are not the person in this stage of their life that you want around you, because the hidden cost of all of this, of everything we've been talking about for the last now 4 episodes, it is your peace. Your peace is impacted by this. What is more profitable than peace? That is the big question. I can't answer that for you. There's nothing more profitable for me than my peace. I am always doing everything that I can, even in my wrongness, as much as I can in my rightness, to establish, create, and maintain sustainably my peace. And really looking at that means looking at energies that can disrupt that. Now, that starts with my energy, right? What am I doing to rewire myself, my old attachment styles, my trauma, my drama, like all the things? What am I doing for me? What am I doing about my healthy eating, my energizing activities, fitness, and attunements and meditations and all the things to calibrate my nervous system? What am I doing for that energy to not disrupt my peace? And then I'm also looking at who's closest connected to that. For me, that's my soul's half and forever lover, my husband of 30 years, right? Well, legally 25 years, going on 26, together for almost 31. But you know what I'm saying. Like that person who has been with me for 2/3 of my life. That's the next thing that I have to look at. Like, okay, what kind of energies is going on with you that's impacting me? And that doesn't mean come in and try to fix him or try to tell him that his life is wrong in some way. But it does mean looking at what we can do differently to create a better vibe between us, which also means supporting him on his path, even if his path feels different than mine in leadership or business or mindset around a thing or a subject, and having open, consistent conversations around that. It also means knowing to pick my battles, to read the room, and saying, okay, this isn't the time, but we are going to get to it. Maybe I need to journal it out so I can get some of the raw versions of the way Naketa would just be that person, because that's just who she is. Maybe I need to get some of that, just who she is, out on paper before I actually open my mouth and communicate it to another human who has the right to be offended, who has the right to feel rejected, who has the right to feel attacked in some way if I'm not careful how I say it, because I just had to say it because that's who I am and I'm a truth teller and all the things, right? For those of you who are not visually watching me, I'm shaking my head and I'm doing all my Philly girl because it is real. It does come out. It comes out even when you don't want it to, but it comes out, especially when you feel challenged or triggered or not heard, let alone not seen. So just being very, very mindful that the loyalty element of keeping people too long is attached to the fear element, which is attached in many cases, not every single one, but many cases also has obligation attached to it. And we have to look at how all three of those elements of keeping someone too long, to want to be that friend, because we've been friends for 20 plus years. I want to be friends till we ride out of this earth and we transition time, right? I want to be that person to show you differently. I know so much about you. We've been through so much together as friends, whether it was physically together or it was just the fact that we were in tandem and sharing some of those things along the ways. But I feel like we should ride out and do it, even though I actually don't feel alignment in this relationship anymore. There's fear there. What if I reposition this person or completely exit them out and I don't have someone else to replace them? What if no one else wants to come? What if I can't attract anyone else? What if this person or those persons were the best I could get? What if they really understood me because of the trials and tribulations that they've been privy to, that I've shared with them from back in the day or whenever it is, and now the new people that I attract in are only coming because of my newness, but not appreciating my wholeness, right? This is a lot of the mind chatter. It's not all trash. Some of really good questions that you should be asking yourself. But when that's coming up for you, you have to be really honest, which is why I'm a big fan of journaling, whether it's verbal journaling, like in a voice note that you can delete, trash, whatever when you're done, or writing it out. And now for me, publicly writing on Substack and just kind of flushing out some of these thoughts. What if? Same question in reverse. What if they are blocking your blessings? What if the energy that you are holding for these persons that have their time has expired, What if it's keeping other persons that can add to you, that can gift you the way that you've been able to gift, that can finally show up for you in the way that you deserve to be shown up for because you've been doing your work and you're not just talking about everyone else's problems, but you're actually working on your own and you're growing yourself and you're doing the things. What if those people are standing out there energetically, of course, in some way, wanting to come into your ecosystem, but there's no room? There's no air. And if you listen to the first episode, you know exactly what I'm talking about. What if that's what's keeping you from moving forward? And it doesn't mean that this is necessarily directly impacting your finances, although I do believe it is. I don't care if you're a billionaire, maybe you could be a multi-billionaire, right? I don't care if you are multi-seven figures and you get that every day or every week or every month. You could potentially be getting that every hour if you want to like minimize it to money. But I mean this more so from the creating your peace perspective. So how do we do that? You have one more episode before you get the free download of the alignment exit strategy, which has everything in there step by step for you to do it. But in short form, you have to do some repositioning. And that means having the hard conversations with yourself first on what is it, loyalty and or fear and or obligation, working through what that means to you, looking at how it is potentially blocking you, as well as, and this is a really big moment for those of you who can really connect to this right now, as well as how you staying in connection with some of those people or keeping them in parts of your estate, your air estate, the heart of your home, the heart of your relationships, keeping them so close, which is a different level of demand of energy, a different strength level, if you will, that maybe if you release them, they can attract in who they deserve as well. Because who I'm talking about in this instance are not the toxic people that should be absolutely cut. I'm talking about relationships that are simply no longer serving you. From the unhealthy through the stagnant, through the our time has just simply expired. And it's not about an instant or someone being bad or not good enough. The time is just done. So that's who I'm talking about here. In the interim, I want you to enjoy the balance of your day, but remember, do it boldly.